Fine Wine.
Welcome to Fine Wine. I'm your host, DM Bard. For this evening's selection, I will be your sommelier of sorrow, your epicure of the egregious, and your recanteur of rage bait. For today's menu, the housing crisis.
If you hate America so much, why don't you just leave?
A phrase often uttered by those made too dumb and comfortable by the status quo to seek out the answer themselves, typically in response to any critique of America, capitalism, or billionaires who deserve more smoke than they're blasting through the ozone layer. The answer is an obvious one. If you can't afford to move state to state, city to city, or block to block, how could one possibly afford to move countries? But as most confounding phrases uttered by the aristocracy's personal lapdogs, it is not asked in earnest. Rather than an answer to a question, their intended outcome is something much more spiteful. If you don't fall into line, then you don't deserve to be an American. Chilling, cruel, and quite frankly, one of the most un-American phrases to tumble from these cardiac crusaders' cheeseburger holes. Or is it? You see, since its inception, America has been going through a bit of a sustained identity crisis. Championing itself as the pinnacle of democracy, justice, and freedom for all, its history shows it as demonstrably antithetical to those values. Be it through an electoral college bought out by corporations and genocidal foreign regimes, the majority of its citizens' existence as second class through financial exclusion, or being built upon f***ing chattel slavery, which throws all three babies out with the bathwater. The contradictions of America's propagandized idealism, aka
Red-blooded American patriotism, nationalism,
and its brutal authoritarian reality of constant exploitation of literally every inch of the globe, are the very reason that American ideology is pedagogically schizophrenic. Meaning that the way we are taught to see the world around us as Americans is inherently scattered, contradictory, and with the intended outcome of making it difficult to separate delusion from reality. The detrimental effects of this can be witnessed throughout American history. From a rebellion of slave owners rebranded as a civil war for states' rights.
A states' right to what?
To the current state of apathy permeating through an entire nation. Our only purpose in life to stoke the coals of capitalism in the hearts of the greedy. A star-spangled product to be sapped of everything they're worth. Your best hope for a comfortable life as a spectacle to be admired or admonished. Though a much more likely fate being that of a mouse being led along a treadmill by a crumb of cheese dangling by a string, always just out of reach. On one end, a free agent within the free market, as long as you can afford the price tag. On the other, just another vein to be tapped within the greater network of organs that keep the beast alive. America's broken psyche. The founding fathers, the problematic pseudo-deified forebearers of America's creation myth, the Athena to our Athens, the Ronald to our McDonald's, or something like that. As the great American historian Lin-Manuel Miranda once said, "I am not throwing away my shot," and also, who lives, who dies, who tells your story? And in the case of our dusty old slave-trading nation birthers, their story has been that of grand revolutionaries who broke the chains of monarchical rule and worked to form a country founded on the ideas of equal opportunity for all. A blatant lie, given that they fucking enslaved people, but it was a different time. There is no justification for the generational brutality of slavery throughout America's history, you fucking apology.
Vegeta, what does the scouters say about their woke level?
It's over 9,000!
Apologies, chers envies. Where were we? Well, yes, it is true that the narrative America was built upon is in reality a very polished pile of dog shit. The spirit of American ideals would catch wind and flourish in its citizens and throughout the globe over time. Eventually, America would become the melting pot of the world, a place where everyone is welcome to fight for a better life, no matter your original creed, crown, or motto. Except that too was a lie, a lure to bring in easily exploitable migrant labor with a mask of tenuous citizenship as long as they never tempt fate by biting the hand that feeds them. So, which is it? Is America an authoritarian police state that's run by racist corporate elites? Or is it a nation for the people, by the people, where all cultures from the world round can dance together in harmony? Are we Uncle Sam or Lady Liberty? Well, yes, no, both, neither? This is the nature of America's slippery ideology. We are taught that both are true when we know that both cannot be true. An inherent contradiction that works as a machine to fuel fallacy and justification in an attempt to make a falsehood truthful. America's original sin, which birthed a nation of liars, covered up over the generations attempting to rewrite their history, because the best liars are the ones who don't even know they're telling a lie. This is how we get a populace who sees themselves as temporarily embarrassed millionaires, while in reality they're doing everything they can to outrun the icy chill of homelessness, briskly biting at their heels. A fate that capitalism makes near inevitable for any who aren't already exceedingly wealthy. But even the most capital-cooing cultists, though incredibly frustrating to be around, are not our true enemy for this evening. Dear viewer, our true enmity lies at the feet of those who benefit most from this antisocial American psyche, the owning class. Leeches in leisure suits.
Hey, don't be mean to small bean landlords. They're regular people just like you and me.
Riddle me this. What do you call a creature that latches onto another for its own benefit while harming the host it's attached itself to? That's right, dear viewer, a parasite! And quite a juicy morsel for our appetizer at that, served up with a pungent chimichurri sauce to cut through the fat. From stealing native land to stealing your wages, these nepotistic walking toll booths exist as a vestige of ancient times, lording over a swath of land at the behest of the monarch, corralling the peasantry into easily surveillable hovels, and collecting every coin that passes through their halls. The lion's share, of course, going to the ruling class, but holding power over a perceived lesser and lapping up master's table scraps is seemingly a fine enough reward for these fetid bloodsuckers. In our more modern reformation of Babylon, ownership is more decentralized. This is to the detriment of nearly everyone. For the modern serf, the renter, it means a market that you were priced out of from conception if you were born anytime after 1990. And even if you could foot the bill, your options are very limited by a national supply shortage, as houses are built at the behest of private interest housing developers. For the modern landed gentry, landlords, they are left with a client base whose finances are shaky at best, being that as of 2023, approximately 43 million households were considered cost-burdened, meaning that they spend 30% or more of their income on housing alone, an increase of 6 million since 2018. This leaves them so close to the end of their own ropes that even they are dwindling in numbers. As for the vassalage and the crown, well, this scenario couldn't be better. For you see, an interesting trend appears when comparing that spike in cost-burdened households to the acquisition of rental properties by private equity firms. Firms like Blackstone, whose primary owners are Vanguard, BlackRock, and JP Morgan, also known as... Apologies, my fervent hatred may come off a bit intense, but I assure you it is not unwarranted. You see, we've arrived at our evening's anecdote and intermedes to guide your ballot from one course to the next. You see, this subject hits a bit close to home for me, pun intended. For as I mentioned in previous soirees, I reside in Texas, one of the main targets for these predatory investors who have acquired 18% of Texas's rental market. This may seem like a small number to the naked eye, but in reality it gives Texas renters a near 1 in 5 chance for their rent to be extracted directly into the pits of hell. And I mean that incredibly literally. Allow me to explain. My rent is around $2,000 a month, paid out to a rental company that is owned by Blackstone, who, as mentioned moments ago, are owned by Vanguard and BlackRock, the main shareholders for Lockheed Martin, America's primo bomb printing factory. Meaning that if I and 2.2 million Americans want a roof over our heads, we must have our wages garnished directly into the American murder machine. What's this got to do with the housing crisis?
Don't interrupt me, I'm cooking!
With the cost to produce a single missile being around $1.5 million. If all of those renters also pay around $2,000, then that will net the warmongers $4.4 billion, enough to produce about 3,000 bombs a month. In pursuit of Lady Liberty's dream, all its citizens have to show for it on the other side are empty pockets and hands stained with the blood of countless innocent lives, all thanks to dear old Uncle Sam.
By the way, speaking of American values, aren't we about due to start bombing some small country that only has a marginally effective air force? Seems to me like we're weeks overdue to drop high explosives on helpless civilians. People who have no argument with us whatsoever. I think we ought to be out there doing what we do best, gang, making large holes in other people's countries. I hate to be repetitious, but we are a warlike lot. We can't stand it not to be f***ing with somebody.
Kids stuck in a room. Growing up poor, I often found myself stuck in my room. Living in the sticks meant that we had no community, especially not kids my age, and even when I'd made friends at school, we couldn't afford the gas money to justify traversing the distance. A sheltered, lonely kid whose only access to the outside world was through a screen, something I fear has become the norm. From a young age, I was hyper-aware of my family's financial reality. I got used to having long hair because haircuts were too expensive. Stopped asking for things altogether after the 20th no, because it gets absurd to think that there will ever be a yes. And once my sister came along and was afforded more opportunities than I was due to an improving economy, it turned me cold and bitter, resenting both her and my parents for the unfairness of it all. Every princess dress and dance class a reminder of what I had missed out on. Overpriced strip mall karate classes from a questionable white man. As, like all 10-year-olds in 2006, my only want in life was to learn kung fu like my idol Jackie Chan from Jackie Chan Adventures. I reiterate, I was a sheltered child whose only window into the world beyond was TV. While the targets of my ire were misplaced, the thing I was correct about was that our situation was unfair. I just hadn't found the right target yet. Nearly 20 years later, after every attempt to get a leg up, to break through the poverty I inherited, I've found myself not much further than where I'd started. A kid stuck in a room. The room may expand beyond the four walls that surround me, but it is those walls that make every decision in my life. Where I can go, how far, what I'm able to do, how long I'm able to be away. While this may not be the case for every renter, in my case, every cent of my meager earnings goes into the roof over my head. Barely enough left over for food on my table, and certainly not enough to justify going anywhere but work. The room a charging station, and I a worker drone never intended to do more than fulfill my tasks and return to prepare for the next set of duties. The parent that sent me here an uncaring and cold system, placing me right back into that resentful and reactionary mindset. The weight of my situation bearing down on every aspect of my life. Relationships, opportunities, milestones, moments. The end product of America's warped psyche. A nation of uneducated, emotionally unintelligent, reactionary, violent, toddler-brained zombies. Mass, generational, arrested development. No, not that one. Well, sort of. Kind of. Sure. Yeah, sure. But I'll go further. A clinical term used in psychology, arrested development, refers to an individual's emotional or cognitive growth getting stuck at a specific stage due to trauma or overbearing parenting. Interesting. Wonder where we'll go with this one. Think of it this way. Lady Liberty, your America mommy. Uncle Sam, your patriotic papa. One, a brutal disciplinarian, and the other, a manipulative nurturer. A recipe for normalizing abuse and exploitation. If the maladaptive behavior of a bully starts in the home, and our presidential parentage is the stuff of Dante Alighieri's nightmares, then how are we to expect anything but a nation of stunted bullies and rudderless wage slaves? My parents shoved me into a room with little to do because they had been shoved into their own rooms with little to do, and so on and so on. Even if they could have known better than to pass it on to me, they didn't have any other choice all the same.
I'm on the verge of getting my real estate license. Is that what everyone does when their dreams are crushed? I feel like that's the only way out. I don't want to do that. Can you even picture me selling houses? Hi, welcome in. Here's the kitchen. Here's the bathroom. Do you like it? Do you want to buy it? This is my entire job, is just doing that. And then the other stuff that's boring. I'm sorry, no offense to you guys, but that sounds so boring.
Tying it back. There's a lot of fancy talk about your feelings and whatnot, but what's it got to do with you getting your broke out of my America? Well, you do have a point. I was getting there, but again, the idea of your America is antithetical. Big word, nerd. As I was saying, tying it back into the question that started it all. We had a taster at the beginning, our apéritif, but now allow these flavors to flood your palate once more for the entree of the evening. If you hate America, why don't you move? A question that assumes a lot and expects even more. Merely 8 words, and yet to answer it would take nearly 10 times the breath. First, we must segment it into its parts. Why do you hate America, and why don't you move? For the first, a question in retort. Can you truly love something if you ignore its faults? Or are you simply an enabler, vying for affection and special treatment? We must then decide what we mean by hatred. Critique comes from a place of analysis. To do so, rather than neglect the subject, you must become consumed by it. This is why love and hatred are 2 sides of the same coin, both opposite poles of the same intense obsession. It is apathy which defines an uncaring nature. As for the second half of the question, why don't you move? Well, for that I'll ask another question. Have you ever booked a flight? About $200 on a good day if you're going a few states away on Spirit Airlines, the cheapest airline. Say your average flyer is around 200 pounds, a factor calculated into the pricing as the heavier the weight, the more fuel it takes to carry. So even if we go by a $1 per 1 pound standard, which is far less than what it actually is, and the entirety of your household and belongings is 5 tons, which is again far below what it actually is, that would make the entire process around $5,000 within the States. And that doesn't even begin to consider customs fees, visa fees, finding a new place to live. It's impossible if you aren't already doing well, and if that is the case, well, you don't have much reason to leave if you're one of the lucky ones the system does work for. In an economy built on oppression and exploitation, they've systematized poverty in such a way and for so long a time that those who built the bloody system that runs this country did so to ensure their descendants would always have a font of cattle to feast upon. The price of freedom. Imagine when you were born, you are given a rungless ladder that you're told reaches all the way up into the heavens. The game works like this. Do the right thing, say the right thing, and you'll be given a new rung to climb the ladder. After long, you feel like you've made immense progress, as you've never stopped receiving rungs, but when you look around, you're not much further from the ground than when you started in comparison to the astronomical distance between you and a seemingly endless horizon. And all made the worse for the entire time you were climbing. The one procuring you with new rungs has been sequestering away each previous rung beneath you as payment for having been allowed to access the ladder in the first place. And now you're stuck. There's no way to climb back down without plummeting, so you keep climbing, putting more strain on yourself with much less progress to show for it than you deserve for your efforts. And all the while growing more and more tired. But knowing if you let go now, the fall wouldn't just start you from the beginning, it would leave you damaged, maybe to the point of never being able to climb again. In America, and by proxy the rest of the world, freedom has a price tag. Climbing the ladder, playing the game, keeping to the status quo. It's all for the purpose of buying your way to the freedom you were promised. Each barrier crossed and every weight lifted, making it easier to play the game, and in turn giving more reason to justify the process altogether. None wanting to admit that they're fully aware of what awaits them at the bottom, the cost of their comfort. Your suffering, your struggle, your hunger. They know that you're there. They fear you like a pampered hen fears a voracious fox. They try and distract you with shiny new toys, grand narratives, and conspiracies, all while living the lives of Roman counselors at the peak of the empire. Leia included. But the only reason they are living in their own paradise is because they've subjected you to a living hell. Every "I can't make it, I have work," every time you've been too drained to socialize, every life event or emergency you've blown your life savings on, every mini panic attack when you open your banking app, every family heirloom in a pawn shop, every bill collector harassing you, every scramble for rent, every person on the street, every bomb dropped was done to benefit a bunch of sociopathic nepo babies who think themselves deserving of extravagance because their racist great-grandpa bought a ticket to heaven in the form of a war bond and shut the gates before it started to get overcrowded, and now they're living the good life funded by fishing pennies from your pockets. You are the cost of their freedom. We all are. They know it, and they pump billions of dollars into their distraction machines to try and keep you from knowing it. Not just on the micro scale of our individual situations, but on the macro scale as well. Every major global decision, every tech revolution, every genocided population. A stepping stone towards attaining power and building the empire. So there's no escape? Again, a problem with the question itself. Dear viewer, there's no need for escape. What we need is restructuring, reform, and for the first time in American history, the rich being held accountable. They may be rich, but they are not powerful without us. You can't afford to live because they know it's harder for you to fight back when you're already beat and have just enough to lose for it to hurt. They want you scared and alone, but you're not. The great sage of Das Kapital, Karl Marx, once said, "Love thy neighbor as yourself," Matthew 22:39, or something like that. Probably. Maybe in German. I think he spoke German, but I don't remember. Like, statistically, given the time period, he probably said at least once in his life. Actually, I think I meant to do the needle one. Is that more relevant? It doesn't take unification under a single banner, or the world coming to an end to find a solution to this crisis. We have already been united in our circumstances as products made for the benefit of the rich. They've been grouping us together like sheep to the slaughter long before you or I were ever suffering this fresh hell. The rich have never cared about anything other than their money, forever searching for their next fix, a fresh vein for them to tap so they can suck it dry and move on to their next host. Just like leeches balancing humors, this archaic practice can also reach its necessary end for the betterment of all humanity. 2.2 million households generate $4.4 billion for private equity monthly. That's only 0.56% of the U.S. population. But if all private equity renters went on strike at the same time, it could be a blow so major that the ghouls would be begging for bailouts just in time for Hot Girl Summer. Perhaps a bit hopeful. I'm aware it doesn't need to happen right away. As the people say, Rome didn't fall in a day. The more we organize, the more momentum we build. Spreading the word can be enough to plant a seed. Because even if it seems like a pipe dream now, it's a billionaire's worst nightmare. And if that isn't a sweet enough mignardise to satisfy your palate, then I'll leave you with another question to end on. Do you keep climbing that ladder, hoping that one day you can eke out above it all and have an easier time climbing to an endless, isolated expanse beyond? Or do you stay here on the ground with those who've fallen, or never even had the chance to climb in the first place, and build something better than the false promises at the end of a never-ending ladder? They want you isolated. They want you in a constant state of crisis, because it makes it easier for them to feed off of you. But we are not a blood bank. If they want a housing crisis, then why not do it on our terms? Carpe diem, rumpe coronam, no masters, no kings.
Wow, another video down. And also, the last one did really good, which is kind of crazy for a first video, but I'm not complaining. Same deal, don't really have too much going on with the Patreon for me to shill it super hard, so if you wanna, go on. You might get some early stuff. This went up early on there. It also has all the bad words intact. And eventually I want to do stuff like, I don't know, merch, but that's down the pipeline. So we got to wait for now. Podcast is on the back burner for, I don't know, maybe I have a new mic. This is the mic. I still got to figure out the audio stuff with it, but yeah, I'll be doing the podcast whenever. With the last video doing so good, I was just like, I'm gonna hop on to making another one of these because I want to keep that momentum up, and also I felt pretty inspired by it. Yeah, so podcast maybe soon, maybe not. Who knows? If you want to know, I'm sure you'll find out first on the Patreon. Yeah, okay, bye. Thanks. Oh, thank you.